Why, hello there. For today's video, in case you couldn't already tell by the title, this is going to be a drugstore makeup only goth makeup tutorial. So if you'd like to see how to get this look right here, please keep on watching. So to start off on my face, I'm using my e.l.f. poreless face primer. The only thing I've never liked about these face primers from e.l.f. is that it's kind of false advertising because it looks like this is how much product you get when in reality, if you guys can see, it's a very, very shallow little container there. It ends like about there. So you get very little product. And next I'm going to be priming my eyelids using my Hard Candy Glamoflauge concealer. This is in the shade Ivory. And to set that concealer on my eye, I'm going to be using this very light shade from Jordana Cosmetics. This is in the shade Creamy Vanilla. And I'm going to be putting that on with a Wet n Wild brush. And this is just to make sure that the concealer does not crease. Then once you have your eyes all set, I usually take some tape to make sure I have a nice clean straight line. And to make sure it doesn't stick too much to my face, I usually put it on my hand and then I put it on my face. This is an old palette I got from e.l.f., which is Eyes, Lips, Face, and it's a very colorful, big palette. And I will probably be sticking to the blacks and the silvers. And then I also have two single shadows. This one is from Maybelline, and it's a black shimmery shadow. This is in the shade Night Sky. And then this is a very deep, dark blue matte eyeshadow from Revlon, and this is in the shade Riviera Blue. So I'm going to go in first with that Maybelline shade, Night Sky. And yes, I will be using this sponge applicator that comes with it. This has a lot of fallout, so I'm very glad I've been doing my eyes first instead of my foundation. I just discovered why there was so much fallout. This is so old that the sponge is actually deteriorating, and that's what's making the fallout all over my eye. It's not the eyeshadow, it's that the sponge is falling apart on my face. So I'm going to switch that out for my Wet n Wild brush. And now I'm going to go in with that dark blue shade from Revlon. And since we're doing a cut crease, I really want to make my crease very smoky and diffused. And it doesn't matter if you go down onto your lid because you're going to be using concealer to cover that anyway. So just take your time blending until you're happy with how the color looks on your crease. And then I'm going to go back in with that creamy vanilla shade and a fluffy brush and just diffuse the outer edges. And now I'm going to take my Physicians Formula Shimmer Strips. This is a kohl eyeliner, and this is in the black. I'm going to line my waterline. I also use this to smoke out my lower lash line, and I'm going to blend that out using my Wet n Wild brush. Also, you can remove your tape now. Now taking my LA Girl Pro Concealer, this is in the shade Porcelain, I'm going to be cutting my crease. And as you guys can see, I'm not cutting my entire crease because I'm going to be blending my chosen color from my lid into the darkness here. So I'm stopping about 3/4 of my eye right over here. Then I'm going to set that with that same vanilla shade from before to make sure it doesn't crease. So now that I have my creases carved out, I'm going to take the black shade from that colorful palette from e.l.f. and just kind of outline the crease with a little tiny detail brush even more. Then I'm going to take this very light blue shimmery shade from the same e.l.f. palette and just pat that on top of my eyes where the cut crease is with my finger. And then to get that same shadow in the very edges of the cut crease, I'm using a very sharp angled brush like this. And now the final part of this eye, or at least for the eyeshadow, is to blend this light color into the black. So I'm going to be taking a dark gray from that same e.l.f. palette just to blend those two together. So now I'm going to line my eyes using my NYX Cosmetic Liquid Liner. So now the eyes are finished, I'm going to move on to the face. And I've already primed my face before using the e.l.f. For foundation, I'm going to be using a mix of the NYX Total Control foundation. This is in the shade Pale, very appropriate. And the L'Oreal True Match Super Blendable Makeup in Warm Porcelain. The L'Oreal True Match is the perfect shade for my complexion, but I do love being a little bit more pale. But the NYX, unfortunately, this formula does make my forehead and my nose look really patchy and dry, so that's why I like to mix the two. So I'm going to go in with the NYX everywhere except for my nose and forehead. And unfortunately, I do not have a drugstore beauty blender, so I'm just going to be using my regular beauty blender, but you can definitely use a Real Techniques one or anything else that you find in the drugstore. And because these foundations are so fair and full coverage, I don't really need concealer, so I'm going to skip that and go right to powdering when I'm going to use my e.l.f. HD powder in translucent. And I found that the powder puff that comes with it works just as well as a beauty blender, but today I'm going to use a mixture of both. And I'm mainly concentrating the powder around the areas I tend to crease more, which for me is around my nose, mouth, and forehead. Now for contour, I'm going to use my City Color Contour Effects palette. I'm going to use the shade on the end, which is the contour shade. And I'm going to use the e.l.f. Ultimate Blending Brush. And for my highlight, I'm going to use that same palette and use the highlighting shade. This is my favorite highlighter brush actually. This is the only brush I use to apply my highlight. This is the e.l.f. Flawless Concealer Brush. Now, almost done, just have to do my eyebrows and my lips, and for my brows, I think I'm just going to use some eyeshadow, probably from that same e.l.f. palette, and I'm going to start sketching out my brows with the darker brown powders and then move on to the black for the final touches. So this is what my brows look like with just the dark brown powder. They look a little too warm for my taste, so I'm going to add the black. So now that brows are done, I'm going to move on to the lips. And I'm just going to line my lips first with a black eyeliner. This can be from any brand, whatever you want. And this is just basic black crayon eyeliner from the brand Bonnie Bell. And it depends on what lipstick you're using, but for me, I'm just going to fill in my lips just to make sure that I get the blackest lips possible. So now that I have my lips fully filled in, I'm going to go in with my lipstick, which is by Wet n Wild, and this is their collection that they did with Fergie a couple of years ago, and this is the black one in the shade Pagan Angel. And last but not least, I'm going to set my face using my NYX Matte Finish Long Lasting Setting Spray. And for the finishing touch, I added some white contacts. These contacts are from the brand Vamp Fangs Official, just in case you guys were wondering. I will leave their Instagram down in the description box. And that is it for my drugstore goth makeup tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed this look. Please let me know if there's anything else you guys would like to see in the future. I'm always open to suggestions. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye!